This is Carla Nelson Chambers, and welcome to Conference Room Conversations. I am delighted to start off our first pilot show with 5 of my fantastic friends, or shall I say sister girl circle. I want to start at my far right with Anae Young, Ebony Gaynor-Barbour, Kim Johnson, Kim Mackey, and Michelle Pettis. We are here to talk about issues that relate to Black women in business and in entrepreneurship, and what we have to do to maintain our sanity, our peace, and our strength individually and with one another. So the first thing I'd like to do is just to talk about, I think, what is the foundation for all of us? And I believe that that foundation is having faith in God. But we also have to have faith in ourselves. And when no one else, even when we're doubting, we have to remember that we are a child of God, and how we measure that and how we hold on to that during difficult times. So, Michelle, I want to start off with you. You gave me that look. I can't help it. And I do that because you and I go back a long time in business, and when I had a different company, but I was just talking to you about how do I market that company when it's something totally different. It was networking people, and we're talking in the 90s, right? It's a no-brainer now, but in the 90s, how are you gonna make money at networking people? But it was just a part of who I am. So let's just talk about having that faith in spite of the doubt that sometimes is in your head and what other people say. How do we get past that?
Yeah. So, I don't think that there's one way. At least there's not one way for me. There's like multiple ways to do it. And one thing is just like consciousness. And when I say consciousness, I'm talking about awareness. I'm talking about this awareness that God speaks to us in many different ways, right?
Yes.
And actually, we ask for what we need in many different ways, right? And to be aware, like when that answer shows up, right? And it's not even to pray for the thing. It's to pray to recognize it. Because I have heard that so many times, and I've said it so many times, even when I'm coaching, is that we have everything that we need, right? God provides that, but just we don't always see it because of our thoughts, because our filters, our beliefs, some stuff that's going on inside of us that we don't know how to navigate. So the mission, the goal, the work is to make our way through the maze of stuff that's happening that's preventing us from seeing and understanding and recognizing and tapping into what God has already provided. Because it's always there.
That's just true.
It's just that we don't always see it.
And sometimes it's difficult to see it because of all the obstacles that flow in our face.
Yes.
And while I think we all have these Bible verses that have been ingrained in us, and while we know that when we ask for that God's gonna, his promises are true and sure, and he's going to provide. We're just thinking it's going to be like 15, 20 minutes. And it's never that quick.
No.
But what we've also learned, I think, because all of us have grown physically and grown spiritually, is that the closer we are to that answer, the more the obstacles come in our way. And that's when we need our sister girlfriends to say, baby, it's right around the corner. You got to hold on. And I think Ebony and I have had the conversations of the ring of fire and how, in the midst of it all, God's got you protected. You just got to realize that ring of fire is around you, and just, hold on, it's going to be all right.
And so, Carla, when you talk about that,
no, right? Sometimes the answer is no. And because we don't want to hear no, we look right past it.
Right. That's a beautiful point, right? And, Carla, you're talking about that ring of fire. I think about it as like one of the things that kind of is like a tenet for me is confusion, right? And not knowing and not understanding. And I think that we have to value that, right? Because not understanding, not knowing, and confusion means that the breakthrough is on the other side, right? It's there to elevate us, right? Yes. The question is there to take us someplace else. So the confusion can be a good thing. Right, not knowing, not understanding can be a good thing if we don't doubt ourselves, and if we understand the purpose of it, that it is for growth and for development. Yeah.
And, go ahead. And what I would like to add to that is, I know when I started on my journey for my business, my product, I invented a purse for women. And at the beginning of the journey, you sit back and an idea comes to your head and you're like, oh, I put it on the shelf. You come back to it. Let me look into it a little bit more. And then you come back. Then I said, I need to do these steps first to get me in place for it. And I started doing these steps and trying to get myself ready for the next step. One morning, I jumped out of the bed, out of a dead sleep. I jumped to my feet, and God said, finish. I swear to God, he said, finish. And from that moment, my mission was to get this product, develop it, get it to market, everything. And in 2018, I introduced the prototype. And then 2019, the product was being made where, you're trying to make decisions. But listening, knowing when to listen, or I still would have been fiddling around, taking my time. But God woke me out of a dead sleep.
Yeah, sometimes I think we talk so much. We're talking to God so often. We're always talking. And we're not stopping to hear what his response is or to understand what is. Sometimes you don't have to say anything. I have gotten finally to the point where I'm just sitting there like, okay, go. This is all you. This is enough. But he had to get me there. And that took a lot of, with my stubborn self, a lot of work to get me there where I got to the point where I said, okay, Lord, this can only be you.
Yes, that part, yes.
And it was then that I was able to hear, to discern what he had been trying to tell me for forever. So thank God that I finally reached that point. But sometimes it really is listening, waiting to hear what he has to say to you, and being open to receive it. So,
but Emily, I mean, do you? Part of what I hear in that, I think it's sometimes it's so hard for Black women, is we got to always feel like we're doing something. We're doing something, right?
Because we grew up with the idle mind is the devil's workshop. Because your mama was always telling you that.
So the idea of just sitting and listening. And waiting and being still, and quite frankly, that meditation is in that stillness and in that silence. That's when we can listen. That's when we can hear. That's when we can hear God, speaking to us. And not only that, when we're in what I think of as meditation, we are actually strengthening our brain, right? And our brain is the center of everything. Right? Thought, belief, right? That's the center. It's center of belief. And so we need to set aside time. Not just for prayer for when we're asking, but like dedicated time for when we're listening.
And not feel guilty about it.
Yes.
Say that again. And not feel guilty. That right there is not feeling guilty because I'm the one go, and if I'm not, then there's something wrong. And it took my husband to say, just sit down, just be quiet, just stop, just stop. It's okay. Now, mind you, how long did that take before you even was dating him and getting married? So all those decades of just constantly. And then you're wondering, because then you're wondering, why isn't it working? Because you pushing where you shouldn't push.
And you already asked for the answer, but now you got your hands all in it. The lane.
Trying to be the cheat.
So I got a lot of that after my children became adults.
Okay.
And so with especially smaller children, like they're at the mall, they're at soccer, they're at this sport, that sport, it's 45 different things that they need to go to. So you're the chauffeur, the chef, the laundry person, the doctor, the nurse, you're all these different things. And as they got older, and I just started taking my hands off of things, it was like, man, this is so peaceful. Oh my word. This is so peaceful. And now, because I have 2 girls, but they're night and day. Literally, like night and day, 4 years apart, 31 and 27. And the 31-year-old was always, gotta go. The 27-year-old, she's like, yeah, I'm off. I'm in the house. I'm good. I don't need anything but my blanket, a TV, maybe a book, and I'm good. But that 31-year-old, and she would make my schedule while my Friday I need to be here, Saturday this was having a party, I'm going to sleep over, you need to pick me up at 11. I'm like, wait a minute, guys, wait a minute. You need to calm down. And so now that she has a son and she sees it, she's like, Mommy, I thought you were kidding. I really thought you were kidding. She said, but now I see it. I was like, thank you, Jesus. Because she would tell you, I could not understand why it was that you would, tell us and ingrain in us to do certain things and move certain ways. And she's like, now I see it. And now I understand it. She's like, I have to tell you, you were right. And I think
that's the mother's favorite.
Right. And if you live long enough.
No, right.
This is what I hear. I don't know how you did it all. That's what I hear.
Right.
How did you do it? How did you do it?
I did that to mom. I even did it to my mom, single mother, and I walked into the store. It's been maybe 10 years ago, but I was in the store for something, and I looked at the bar, maybe longer than that. And I went to the toy section and went to looking at the Barbie dolls, because I was a Barbie doll girl growing up. And I saw the price, and I was like, oh my God. Because you can just imagine what the price was compared to back in the late 60s, 70s.
Yes.
How does she do it?
Those sacrifices.
The sacrifices. And I said, I don't know how I would have. She said, oh yeah, you would have figured it out. As a, as a parent, you would have figured it out.
Because that's what you do.
And then one other time she even said it was worth it because it kept you out of the street. It kept you from getting into, staying out of trouble, not worrying where you were, and everything. I was like, okay. Of course, now it's not playing with Barbie dolls as much as it is video games and things of that nature. Yeah. But we don't realize the sacrifices and why our parents say no sometimes, But it is, all of a sudden it starts playing back in your head as an adult and everything.
And it all makes sense.
The older we get, the smarter they are.
That's right. That's right.
You can relate.
Yeah, you can.
So, go ahead. No, go ahead.
But, us as Black women, we have to find our space where we're able to relax, keep our mental health up under control, and our physical body.
Yep.
We were talking about that earlier. Making sure you get a massage or,
It's not a luxury. It's a necessity to get a massage.
Flexible spending.
I told her, me and my husband just joined a club. It's like a therapeutic gym. They offer therapeutic pool, steamer, shower steamer, what's that, sauna. I need those things for my bones now. It's not just to play,
It's a necessity.
It's a necessity for us to keep us healthy.
Yep. One of my girlfriends said, after 50, it's all about maintenance and repair.
Yes.
And it goes by You feeling it? Yeah, it's maintenance and repair. Either you're going to repair it or you're going to maintain.
Heavy on the maintenance.
How about that?
Heavy on the maintenance.
And so as Black women and being in business, it's even a double layer. One, about how we rely on God. But I think in this day and time, and not just in the last 6 months, but just in this day and time where we are, I have found, which is one of the main reasons why we're doing this, is that we have to rely on each other. One of my girlfriends always talks about a sense of community, but with where we are now in the the life that all of us find ourselves in. Not only community, but collaborative. And how do we become, collaborative with each other? Ebony and I have talked about it, and another girlfriend of mine have talked about it, which is we're relying on God, but God gives each one of us resources, right? And so we likened it to baking a cake or bread. You got the flour, you got the sugar, you got the butter.
The eggs.
The eggs, right. Let's all get together and put our resources together so when we make this cake or this bread, we all eat.
I like that.
And with my years talking about networking and that was all about how do we, find out what the resources and what our giftings are and how do we spend our dollars amongst ourselves and everything. That's more important now than ever before.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so, and then even, I'll just say, this whole thing of, well, Black folks don't like doing business with Black people. Well, that's a misnomer. That is not true.
Stop that.
Let's just stop that. It's about people doing business with people of like mind.
Like mine.
Yes.
And the Spirit bears witness to the Spirit. So for me, because of the way I live and move, I want to be with people who have a belief in God. I didn't say anything about your religion.
Right.
Just the belief in God. And how do we, keep that in our daily lives, but also how we provide that to each other. Because I've talked to every one of you individually, and I got a word. I'm like, God, that was God. that was not man. That was God. And I appreciate that, which is why we're all here at the table. So how does the work for you? And I know you've been quiet and taking it all in, but I want to bring you in the conversation because we have the conversations about how, and we all know when you do hair, that's a ministry. And it really is. It's not just about making a woman look good, though we all look good when we leave. But there's a connection physically because she's in your head.
Yeah. That's right.
Yes.
She's in your head.
Yes.
And it is
energy.
Girl,
And
and you know how we talk. The commercial, I don't know, it might have been before your time when they say only your hairdresser knows.
Yeah.
But we've had conversations, and even Anaya said, I wish you were here when so-and-so was here. We were talking about it. But she's even told me that I need to come in with some oil the next time. So what is it that, as you're working with your clients, and you do minister not just in deed, but also in word, that keeps you doing what you're doing?
So first thing is, they're not my clients; they're my guests.
Okay.
They're being welcomed into my creative space, my home essentially. So I feel like client is clinical, not a doctor or anybody in that practice. But I welcome them, no matter who they are, how they are, or what they came with. I just welcome them. And in my space, there's little like misnomers of who I am. Like there's a tambourine on my wall,
girl,
and
this conversation
idea. But every so often, I'll get a person who'll walk in like, "Is that a tambourine?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Sometimes we gotta, show a little bit. But I just feel like it's my responsibility not only just to make you look good, but feel good. There is connection with how you feel and how your DNA is shaped. And I can tell things from, a woman where she is in her menses, or if she's expecting, or if she's going through medical. I can, without even saying anything. And I use that feel, that touch to meet them where they are. And like you said, I attract people in my space that are like-minded. And I feel like we don't have to, I don't even have to use the words Bible, God, or anything. We can speak just like we're speaking now. And it's like,
they get it.
Yeah, right. And, if I've ever, one of my assistants, India, same last name as your husband. Right. And they happen to be in the same space at the same time. And I'm doing Carla's hair, and an hour passes, and I haven't said anything. Those two were just talking, and she had just gotten married, going through premarital counseling, looking for a church, all the things. And that just creating that space so people can meet. Because I feel like with COVID and the pandemic and everything, people were very like clinical, like stay away from me, social distance. But now we're getting back into the salon. Now it's exciting when it's more people in the space. Like, oh, what are you doing? What do you do? And I think it's my responsibility to create a safe space, that third space, especially in our community, those barbershops, those hair salons, where you come, let your hair down, be yourself, be yourself, but it also doesn't have to be you being yourself, getting ready to go to the next thing. You can just come and be yourself. I offer that space to my guests. You can just come in and hang out. You can schedule some time. We can just sit and we can talk, and that's fine.
And God, we need more of that. There was, say what you will about back in the day, but women, because girl, yes, in the tea parties, though, people said. But the tea parties did something. It was a time to unload and to.
It kept them grounded.
It kept them grounded, and it realized that it's not just me going through something,
right?
Or even in times of celebration, you want to celebrate it with those who. That's the reason for the tambourine, because girl, what's going on today? What's like? Oh no, next time wear the tambourine. You shake it. It's like praise the Lord, and that was what it was for, And I've been in this space a couple times by myself, and when things finally go through, I just grab the tambourine like all by myself. Thank you, God. Thank you, God.
Yes. Praise.
You got to, yes. And but just to be able to have like-minded women that are spiritual and in business, excuse me, in some form or fashion, and what we. Because of COVID, we're slowly getting back to it, is being able to have that connectivity so you can celebrate. And there's something about being in person versus being on the phone. I got it. I got the contract. I got the this, or I got the office space, or whatever. I got my book released. I got my patent. It's something you want to be able to celebrate and be able to, enjoy and everybody be happy for you. Yes.
Genuinely.
Happy. That part.
That is the word.
Authentic is one of the things that Sandra often says, is being authentic, because that's the key. And when you're authentic with each other, when things aren't going so well, you know that you're in a safe place to be able to say,
I'm struggling.
Right.
I'm struggling.
I'm struggling.
Yeah, I'm struggling. Yeah. Yeah. So, as we were just talking about, I was mentioning to Ebony one day, and I think I mentioned it to Sandra. I said, I just did an event a couple of days ago, last week. This week past, whatever. And we were in charge of putting the event together for this project that's going on in Baltimore City. And before it was over, my body was just like, just going down. And when it was, and it was so funny that Sandra was like, Carla, do you want this? And I'm like, and she said, okay, I got it. And I was like, my brain was tired, right? And when I got home, the next day I was telling Ebony and Sandra, I said, doing events now compared to what I did 30 years ago is a big difference. My body's like, you want to do what? When? Oh, man, right? No, we're not doing that. And I felt, and I'm like, I don't feel, well, I do feel older and I think differently, but I felt like it shouldn't be, I'm used to doing this, it should be no big deal. And my body was like, oh yeah, it's a big deal.
Ma'am.
Yeah, but we're supposed to do it differently at
this age in our life.
Yeah, we're supposed to do it differently. I mean, that's process. I dated somebody like years ago, and this guy told me, and I didn't even understand this. I was in my 20s, and he's like, self-definition is a process. Right? Self-definition is a process. And the longer I live, the more I feel like not only is it self-definition, but everything is a process. Every time we do something, we learn a little bit more about how to do it, and it informs how we do it the next time. So we're not doing it the same way. We have to, so how we're approaching this world and tasks and things that we do at 60, 70, almost 70, it's It shouldn't be.
lying.
It shouldn't be the same.
It's not going to be.
I know, right?
It shouldn't be the same.
It's
You know,
true.
we don't want it to be the same.
Yeah.
So,
But the self-definition, that resonates with me because I have to define what works for me.
yes,
And I'm getting the tinglies because I feel there are times when I used to do events. Literally, it's hard to believe. 30 years ago, I did them this in a way. And true, technology has changed and everything. And you do have to roll with that. But I also feel like now that I'm doing events, purposeful events, not just networking events. These are for projects, for my clients. I feel that I felt like I missed out on something.
No, I think
I
you
was
were
just going to say that. I
that.
think it's becoming okay with having to do it differently than you did.
And that's why that resonates with me because I'm thinking I'm missing out. There's something I'm not doing right. Instead of realizing, no, you have to do things differently.
yes.
Right.
Yes.
Not wrong, just
Different.
different.
So I want to talk about that missing out. I do my own recovery work for food addiction.
For what again?
For food addiction.
Food addiction.
I do my
Okay.
own recovery work every week. And one of the things that we talk about in group that was like a big eye opener for me is I talked about how for so long I was driven by this fear of missing out. Speaking FOMO, and there's a name for it. There's a name for
It's
it.
an acronym for everything.
And it was like, oh my God, that looks so good. I should have some of that. You might be tasting and having some experience I'm not having. I used to
Not
joke.
even understanding that it's going to be different because you're two different people.
That part, right?
Right.
I used to double book my stuff for things all the time. Oh yeah, you're going to that. I want to go to that too, right? And just
How come I wasn't invited?
right. This thing. But what I learned in this group is that there's something else on the other side of the fear of missing out, and it is the joy of missing out.
Yeah.
Something called JOMO. Another acronym. I mean, who knew? But it is like once you decide what you're going to say yes to, it helps your nose become
easier.
stronger. So it's the same thing. Okay, I might miss out on this event, right? But it's going to allow me the opportunity to spend some time with myself.
Yep.
How about that?
How
So
about
there's
that?
some joy.
Yeah.
There's some joy in being able to do that we don't always understand when we're 30.
And that's exactly what I was going to say because in our 20s and 30s, we're trying to make an impression, we're trying to get whatever it is we're getting, whatever that mission is, whatever that is inside that's forcing you to go. And it's almost when they talk about the second half of your life, and then when you get a certain age, you realize that ain't important.
Yes.
They not important.
Right.
This is what's important.
Yes.
And thank you for saying that because I was just like, is something wrong?
No.
No. Priorities shift.
Yes.
And that's okay.
And that's a beautiful thing.
They should shift.
They need to shift.
They need to
Because
shift.
there is
Supposed to.
nothing worse than someone in your age group acting 20 years younger than what they are.
And you're looking like, what is going on? They should not be wearing that.
Let's just start with the wear part, what they wear, right?
And then we can get to where they're going.
Going and what's in
What
their
they're
brain
wearing.
and what they're thinking.
Right.
Or not thinking for that matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me now, what I find is I make decisions based on the peace, what I call the peace factor, right? If it's not going to bring me any level of peace, I don't even consider it. If it requires me to get home at an hour that's past the hour I think I need to be home, I don't consider it. If it has to do with other people that I may not want to deal with, I don't consider it. Because for me today, I just have to have peace.
Yes.
That's peace in my home life. That's peace with my children and any other relationship I have.
That's
It just
peace even with your
has to be
business.
Oh, absolutely with your business.
Absolutely.
I mean,
And so in my past life, I was a practicing attorney. And for the clients that I didn't want to be bothered with, I would call and charge them what I call the aggravation. That's an added fee, right? Because I already know you're bringing drama. I'm gonna end up having to go see the judge more often because you're gonna have all these issues. And oftentimes they would say, "Yeah, no, that's too rich for my blood. Thank you, Jesus." Because I already know. And now again, I just look back and say, "Yeah, if it's not going to bring me peace, I don't want any parts of it."
It reminds me
And that's just where I leave it.
I'm sorry. It reminds me a little bit about this one guest that you had that was just providing extra. Nothing was ever good enough. I remember her telling me, and it took her. So I was like, I'm on my way, and I just came and take the vitamin B's. You need the vitamin B's right now, because and mind you, you're trying while you're dealing with this unruly guest, as you're trying to provide the ultimate service to your other guests, and that's not good for business, but it's not good for you. And she did the sister girl call, and I said, okay, I'm on. She didn't even ask. I said, I got something for you. I'm on my way. I could feel it because I could hear it.
What's going on? To what you said about the peace factor and the aggravation fee. Yes.
I might ask
that too. Where it's like, how much do you charge for X? You're like, oh, it's $1 million. Right, but there's like a lot of talk online, especially about the beauty culture and the space of like how the modern hairstylist or beauty professional is attracting their clientele. And it's like, oh, there's these deposits, these forms, there's this, there's that. And not agreeable to most, but it's to what you just said. They're trying to fine tune, they're funneling down the person that's going to bring them the most peace. Now, if you can get past the essay and you can get past the bullet points, that you can get all the way to the calendar and you secure that appointment, that's the person for you. Right? So it's annoying in most cases, but it's more so about choosing peace. If you can't make it past all my barriers I'm putting up, you really want to see me. So that made me think about choosing peace.
And I hadn't thought about that because my hairdresser, while she doesn't do it because we've been
friends for so long.
I'm not one of them either. So
but one of her other stylists does. And I said, I don't know if I like that. That doesn't seem very personable to me. I would never want to go online and book an appointment and hopefully, the website is working today. And I said, no, that's not going to work for me.
For Anae, she has an online appointment schedule, but I love it because I can go on a calendar and see when she's available and all of that stuff, and work it in that within. But I think because barbers and hairdressers have gotten ripped off and not considered a true professional, you do have to kind of put some legalese in your, if you don't come, because even the doctor says it, if you don't come and you cancel out, because that appointment could have been for somebody else. Or this the day I got out of the bed early to come, and then you didn't show up.
But that goes back to that peace factor. Whereas we've been fighting this uphill battle of people respecting what we do as a profession. It's not a side hustle. It's not playing game. This is my actual
This is what I do.
Especially if you in my head.
That's what you want.
Right. I want a
as prices increase and people, these dollars are charging this and they're getting away with this. And it's not that. It's that they're charging what it should have been a lot because they want to buy a house. They want to buy a car. And they can't.
They have families.
They have families, but it's not that you're paying their bills. This is the price, this is the cost of their business. And so now with all of these like-minded individuals who are now trying to get peace, right? They don't want to work. Y'all been in the salon on Saturday, y'all there from 8 to 8, and your hair is still not done. They don't want to do that anymore. They're working smarter. They're choosing peace.
And I'm not mad at that.
I'm not either. Because I've been with hairstylists. Wonderful job, but like you said, I'm in there all day, and I got stuff to do.
Time is money.
This lady here,
I charge by the hour.
baby. This lady here, in and out. In and out, and or what I love it if for some reason she's behind because of another client, she says, "Give me such and such." Okay, cool, because I can sit here and do something. That works, and I know how long it takes for me to get to a shop, and I appreciate that, and so. That's part of, knowing your client or your guest. And then technically they started out as your client. Next thing you know, they're your friend, they're your sister girl. I've had a couple of people that I've worked with and they end up being just like a sister that I didn't have. And that kind of flows right into what I want to talk about. While we always talk about community and supporting one another, I think it's really gone beyond community and gotten into collaborative. And how can we collaborate with each other? How can I help support what you're doing? And you know, depending on what it is, I may have to charge you, you know, for it, or I might, girl, go ahead. You know, how is it that with Kim, you know, the collaborative is she can get information to me that I wouldn't otherwise be able to get, or be able to move on processes faster on behalf of somebody else because of where she sits. And all that does is help me look good. You know, I spoke to at a politician, will remain nameless, but someone kind of high up, and they asked me to speak to their audience on behalf of the community. It's like I got something, and I won't be long because I know everybody knows I'm a talker. But what I said was, and it really ended up being more business, which was this person knew that when I called, I wasn't calling for something for me. It wasn't a selfish call. I was calling for someone else. Can you provide me information for this, that, and the other? And I said, so she knew that I was calling for someone else. And matter of fact, she told me at the MBE night in Annapolis, she said, what have you done for yourself? You need to take some time. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You know, because but when people know that you're doing it for the benefit, it does help you or your business, but you're doing it for the benefit to help somebody else. Yes. They're more willing to help and everything because you're not being selfish.
It makes a difference.
It makes a difference. Yeah.
You know, when I first started in sales, and this conversation kind of reminds me of that, I had a sales manager that said, here, you need to read this book. And the book was the 1 minute salesperson. It was about that big. It was like in the 80s.
That's how far back we go.
That's how far back we go. Right? But there was one thing in that book there were many things in the book, but the one thing that still resonates, not just in sales, but just in life in general. And the principle was this: if you help other people get what they want, right, then they will help you get what you want. Right. Yep. But the first thing is to help them get what they want. Yeah. And before we can do that, we have to have meaningful conversations with one another.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And I will say that book shifted how I approached, even back then, how I approached like networking. I kind of like for a long time didn't even like the name of it because it felt kind of oily. But what I figured out, and I kind of like refined this more of late, that it makes more sense for me to go to some sort of conference. If I'm selling my book or whatever I'm doing, not to be a vendor or an exhibitor. Right? That doesn't, not 100 people are, coming to me.
To take your candy and to talk and take your candy and your opinions and stuff.
I might, and they're not going to come to me because I'm not going to have candy up here. If you want a carrot stick, but to go and see who's there.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
if I can come away with 3 to 5 meaningful connections,
yes.
Right?
That's all I need.
Like some eyeball to eyeball, face to face, and we'll follow up afterwards.
Right.
Not like this whole fishbowl of business cards.
And you don't remember who it was or what they were talking about.
Right.
Yes.
And so to be able to go with this mindset of who's here that I might be able to find some alignment with, right? But the way I can even figure out that alignment is to figure out how what I do might be able to help them in some way. And when that to me is like coming from a place of service. That coming from a place of service is coming from a place of love, right? And if we're coming from a place of love and respect and honor, then we're coming from God's place. Then we're coming from God's place.
Starts with service. Service to others. Yeah. And in turn, you will be served.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And there's another Bible says, if you want friends, you have to show yourself friendly. Yes, it's true. Didn't understand that. I'm always friendly. Well, you're friendly, but you realize that's not the right group. I found myself, I'll say that as a child, because I was always the new kid in school, so I'm always trying to make friends, and you realize, you're just getting used.
Well, that's because people use friends too loosely these days.
Right, they're just acquaintances.
Yes, co-workers. Yes,
right.
And so I reserve that word nowadays.
I do too. That's why everybody not in my Facebook.
I don't subscribe that to people unless we are indeed friends.
That's right.
And I would also say that I understand with us really showing that we can help others versus always trying to someone help us, you know. I've been managing people for 43
Bless
years.
Your heart.
43 years. So I
in
think
the
I'm
retail
an
space, so you can.
you know? Right. And, I've been with my company 27 years. And so I manage all of Maryland, D.C., down to Richmond, Virginia. And I have all kinds of people who work for me. But one of the things that has made me truly successful is the fact that I really believe in treating people the way I want to be treated. Really training and developing them, showing them there is a future.
That's right.
If you follow my lead,
right,
and we can all get to the finish line together. So I'm always trying to encourage people to be the best side of themselves, and we can do it together, a certain way, but we can be successful.
Yeah.
I've been very successful.
So what I say to that is I treat people the way that they want to be treated. Not the way that I want to be treated, because that may be different, right?
Right.
But to your point, you meet people where they are, and you treat them the way that they want to be treated, whether that's calling them by a certain pronoun, whether that's, scheduling a meeting regularly, whether that's adjusting a work schedule. You can do all of those things as long as it's within the realm of your
it doesn't take you outside of
it. Doesn't take you out of that, and you still manage to get the work done. So we can have any conversation you want to have, but the end goal has to be getting that work done.
Absolutely.
Has to be.
And
I'll work with you any other way possible. That's not going to compromise me, and it's not going to compromise the work. You want to telework 3 days a week? No problem. I'll put you down for 2. And we can have the conversation about the other one, and we'll get there. But you have to show yourself that you're worthy of 3.
And you're worthy of it.
And you're worthy of it. And so I'm always a fan of just treating people the way that they want to be treated, whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
Because we're all human at the end of the day.
To that, I wanted to ask, being the millennial here, what I've noticed, there's a gap, right? We're speaking about community and collaboration. There's a gap of the, I want to say, younger generation women, where they kind of feel like they're in charge of creating their own groups, their own communities, but they don't have the skills. So where you were saying training and developing, we say coaching, right? Because that seems inclusive. Like, I'm not telling you what to do. You're walking with me, right? So what do you think is the gap? Because it is, or if you even feel there's a gap.
There's definitely
there's a gap.
Identification is the first one.
Sometimes even like the verbiage or how we speak about our business, our work, or our community.
It's communication.
It's different, right? How I may see it and you may see it may sound different, but it's the same.
But it's
It's the verbiage, right? So I'm in a space right now where I have a generation under me, which is wild, which is crazy, but I find, them leaning on me. I'm like, well, hold on now. We cool.
I'm not that far.
I'm not that far from you, right? But also, like, I kind of am. So I'm trying to find a way to bridge the gap from my generation to the one above me. Because it oftentimes can feel like I'm being talked at, not talked to. And so while that can be good, I can get the job done. Is it collaboration? Is it team?
It doesn't feel like
it. Doesn't. It just feels
It's like your mother's
almost like you're lording over me. Exactly. It feels like you're
admonishing.
Right. And there is tradition.
But it is a way to do it.
Right.
It is a way to do it, because I think that when I interact with people who work for me, I have layers.
Absolutely.
I'm here, and I have all these layers below me. But I make sure when I travel, I go places, I literally stop and talk to everyone. I make them feel like they're a part of a team. And I make sure that they know my door is open if something happens. They can come my way. So, in teaching and working with people who are still leaders for me, I constantly talk about tone. I talk about how you present yourself. I had a district manager call me last week over a situation. And, I'm listening to her talk and everything. And she just was fired up, And I said, well, you know what? It's one of her managers who worked for her. I said, we'll do a 3-way and we'll all talk. But I said, first, you got to get yourself up under control. Because I said, I can hear the tone. And when people hear that, it's
automatically become defensive.
Yes, why wouldn't you, right?
That's right.
So, when you're dealing with managing people, tone, how we deliver, the whole 9 is important. So, we can reach anybody. I don't care how old you are. If you work for me, I feel I can reach you. But we all have to step back and know how to go about it the correct way. So, we did. I told her I'll call her back in about 15 minutes, I said, take a deep breath. Let it go. I'll call you back.
And everybody's different. Everybody's different. And so the way that I need to speak to you may not be the same way I need to speak to Ebony.
Absolutely.
And the way that I speak to Ebony may not be the same way I need to speak to Carla.
That's the
and you have to, as a manager and a supervisor, I had to learn that.
Yeah.
When you're managing 40 some odd people, that means you got 40 different personalities every day.
And I have over
sometimes you have 80 because each person has 2 personalities.
How about
at
least?
So you never know. I mean, from day to day what you're walking into. And so immediately when I walk in the door, I say good morning. I call people by name and I thank them for coming to work today. Thank you for coming to work
that
today.
Means so much. You said it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming in.
And for me, when you talk about tone, there are times I hear my mother come out of my mouth.
You have to stop and
some of y'all have met my mom, bless her soul. And she doesn't mean any harm, but she can be really, I don't even know what I got a couple words, but she,
striking.
And so,
direct.
And without some tact. And so what
no filter.
Oh, baby, the older she get, no filter. Bless her heart.
That's what happens.
And that, they say when you get older.
After 50, you don't
oh no, girl, after 16, after 70 is another filter.
80.
And my mama be
80. And she's just off the chain.
Girl. So,
I love her.
Love her to
what
death.
I learned several decades ago was after N was to say please and thank you. Because even one time when you all know we do the cookout at our house in the summertime and everything, and one of my husband's female employees, she asked me for where the cups were, and I said, just get one over there, and I went off and started doing something else. And she was like, oh, and I said, I'm sorry. My husband told me later, I said, I didn't mean, he said, she don't mean no harm. She's just in event planning mode right now, right? I'm not, I'm just in event planning mode.
Directing.
And Rudy goes, I don't work for Rainbow.
But you could. Get over that.
That part.
Yes.
So since you brought the husbands in, I was going to try to, but no, I'm going to bring mine in just for a little bit because he says that he does the same thing. He says good morning to everybody. And he said what he also found was the culture, the type of culture that was there before he came. And it was very domineering, do what I say now. And these are men talking to men.
Right.
And so
Toxic.
it was toxic. And so you got men castrating younger men, and they don't know any other way. And so here he is coming in because he has to wear a suit and he's older. They thinking, oh, you this, that. You know, I'm from Emerson Village. And they're like, no, you're not. Oh, yes, I am. And then he'll let us kind of had to do that. But he tries to show them who he is. He's a, funny guy and joke and everything, but he treats everybody with respect and with dignity. And he says, even when they have to write reports, and he said he finds men and women, I feel you did this. He said, get out your feelings. Get out of your feelings. This is work. It's not I feel. It's sight. What did they, according to the manual, according to protocol, what did you do? What did the person do or not do? Yes. And that makes them think. Yes. So regardless of the generation, what we have to do is get out of feelings and get out of and just what's the rule and regulations and the work environment and the policy. And so, when we're talking about how do you manage people, manage them by what the SOPs say, rules and regulations. And if there aren't any, then maybe you might need to go to HR or something like that. But then when you HR, it's just your business, that's important for you to set what are your policies. And you can't treat one client different than the other, when it comes to what you are going to accept or not, or one employee or one contractor differently or what have you. We have to learn as business women what are our standards, what we will allow, and then say what they are, because we will think about it. But if we're not telling them, and if it's not in writing, that's not fair for the people that are working for us or with us as well.
Trying to figure it out.
And trying to figure it out.
Because we're not mind readers as good as we are.
Baby.
I also think, to go back to your original question, I think that communication is key. Circles like this, where you can have these types of conversations to help, bridge that gap is totally important, especially with there is a big gap between, the generations. I got to look online to see what my generation is, but which one I fit into, but there is a big gap. But those conversations, those meetings that you have with your team, just to hear, follow the manual, the SOP, yes, but sometimes it really is just seeing where they are.
Because there's something else going on.
Right. So to understand that and then build from there, building those relationships. That's what's been key for me.
But when you even say the word is coaching as opposed to training, and that comes with, that's an evolution as well. Because I'm in the do as I say, not as I do.
But sometimes with small businesses, you have to be that way, right? Because every contract you get or don't get is going to impact the bottom line.
That's true.
It's a lot different when you're talking about the rainbows of the world, right? Where they have 40,000 locations and, 42 states. It's a lot different. And so when you're talking about these kind of one-on-one kind of occasions, or even if it's a small group, 3 or 4 people, I find that even with what I would call the younger group, a lot of it is about their feelings, and some of that is cultural. And so you have to, and I preach this all the time, you just have to meet people where they are. Whatever they're feeling, deal with that feeling. And then you go back to work.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? You start with wherever they are. And you say, okay, we need to transition because I have, another meeting, or we have this other thing coming up. But you have to acknowledge that.
Yes.
Because if you don't, then they're going to think that you just don't care.
And sometimes
that's the furthest thing from the truth.
Right.
And sometimes wherever they are, it might be something, might need a resource that they don't even know that exists if it's for the company. I think when, as business women, that's when it's missing, that's where the connectivity comes, because we've had that. I think I've had it with everybody. I need so everybody calling me for what they need. Sometimes I need something, and I'm asking who has XYZ.
So what do I ask you, Carla? How are you doing?
Yeah, you do.
Because you taking care of everybody else. Slow down. How are you doing today? Oh, I'm fine. No. Because you glossed over that way.
I did.
How are you doing? Like, really, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How are you managing?
That's why I come and do that to you. Because I get it done.
And then it forces her to slow down.
Right, because sometimes it's just like, and then when you don't know how you're doing it, it really does make you stop and think. How am I doing?
Yeah.
No, I'm not doing
it. everything is fine. I've run through the whole list in my head. So why am I feeling the way I'm feeling? Something's off.
Right.
Yeah.
And instead of pushing past it, I'm learning. I haven't learned this totally, but I'm learning to just
Sit in it.
Yes.
yesterday,
There's power in that.
there was nothing wrong with yesterday. I just felt a little off, and I couldn't figure. It's the weather. That's what And then I was okay. And so because I felt it was the weather. After I did what I had to do, I took my happy behind home and got on the couch with and chilled. It was okay. And there was a time when doing that was not okay. No, you got to be on the computer. You got to be doing.
That's a whole discussion.
Another workshop.
We can't.
Which is not being okay.
Just being right.
Just not being okay and being okay with that. Because there were
Just check
those
in.
days.
Just check in with your girlfriend and just let them know. Okay, today I'm just letting you know. Today ain't a good day. And sometimes in having a conversation, you talk and you can figure it out. And other times it's like, girl, I understand. And next thing you know, you laughing and joking and okay, I'm good now. And nothing changed. The situation has not changed, but my attitude has changed because I talked to somebody or just the fact that this isn't a day to deal with that situation. This is a day just let it go because and nothing you can do about it. But your girlfriend that made you laugh, made you tickle, whatever it is to get you through the rest of the day. And that's
super important.
and so important.
You shifted the energy.
Yes.
You shifted the energy around this situation. I still want to go back to
Absolutely
your question about being talked at, right? And what I like the thread that I've heard and what everybody has said around this connection is that when we share our story, when we tell the story about why the procedure is this or this, then I think that helps with the connection, and you don't feel talked to. And from a standpoint, of being an older person,
season.
and you hear you hear this conversation just coming at you. I mean, of being talked at. I think part of it, at least from my perspective, is that you get to a point where you know so much stuff, right? And you might see somebody going down a path, and you're just like, here, no,
Danger and
it may not feel like love. It may not feel like protection. It may feel like preaching. It may feel like a whole bunch of stuff. But it's like, no, sis, I've been there. It's that. Or if you see a procedure, right? If you start to work someplace and it says, no flip-flops allowed to the meeting, and you think, why on earth would there be something in this manual that says no flip-flops allowed to the meeting? Because somebody flip-flops. So there's a reason.
And it's not personal.
Because somebody didn't know, right? Is that some sort of moral thing? Not some sort of moral
I'm not
failing.
on a construction site, so I don't
So sometimes we have to step back when we see things. When you talk about that funnel, right? From the hair. Okay, if from a customer's perspective, I think that there's some value and protection in that. I'm about to deal with somebody who's about taking care of business.
Yes,
right?
that's how I looked at
somebody
it.
who's right. I like that, right? Or if you're in some other place, you may feel some sort of way. But that funnel, this
girl's serious.
Yeah,
about her business.
they came up with this because some people did something other than this.
Right.
Right.
And disturbed you.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
I feel as though like the SOPs or like the manuals, following pretty much the ground rules, right? As a more, I guess, modern or progressive way, I think for the people in my space, I try to be more proactive than reactive. No, I'm not gonna know all the wrongs, the do's, the don'ts, but I think about my son. I have a 14-year-old autistic son, and when he first was diagnosed, I was all about the books, all about figuring out all the stuff. Like, how do I help? What do I do? Where can I send him? He's going here. And no, he can't do this. Oh, that's not safe. Oh, he can't do this. Because I limited him before I saw what he did. And now I use what I learned by becoming a mother to how I run my business. So I really enjoy how frustrating it is to sit back and watch what happens. And even for my team, sometimes they are younger, and instead of saying, okay, this is how we do this service. Okay, so why'd you do it that way? Or not even why. I feel why, even when my husband asks me why, it's challenging. It makes a person defend themselves. So if I say, why do you have that shirt on? And you're like, I like this shirt. I like this shirt. Meanwhile, I was going to say, I love that shirt, right? But you're like, what's, so.
That's a tone thing.
Okay, that's a tone, right? But instead of like, this is, sure, we can use, my business is more service, more fluid. So this is how we do it. Sure, the traditional way of doing it. Tell me why you did it that way.
Or was that easier for you to do it that way?
Right.
Because maybe it's a process that could be more fine-tuned.
It's better. Yeah. It's better. Okay, you can cut your blow dry time in it.
Let's do that.
Yeah, and that's why I was thinking about that. Yeah, because you can learn some things from the younger generation. Because they, I remember that I was trying to do an event and trying to figure out how we were going to send it out to thousands of people, and this one program was charging you up the wazoo to use it. And the young girl that I was with, she said, "Oh no, there's another such as that was just cheaper." I was like, "What?" Again, because unfortunately, with all these platforms and softwares, that is showing my age, But again, that's not what I do, right? So I will find me a young person that is good with all of that.
But there's something to be learned from
everybody.
It is, everybody. My original question wasn't so much about my, employees or it was about us entrepreneurs. Because there is a gap. You guys see that COVID had a huge Black women entrepreneurship boom, and these new business owners who know about business, and then you have you guys who are well versed and experienced, and there is a drop off. There's a huge drop-off where they're trying to navigate scaling, and they can't, because they're troubleshooting, whereas you scaled, and now you're trying to sustain. Whereas they're building. There's like an opportunity for that to knock together and hustle, but it's not happening.
They can't bring it together.
I remember when I used to say, I wish I had a me when I was in that space. So I am constantly trying to be that person for the next generation to answer those questions and say, this is where I messed up. This is what didn't work. This is what I had to learn. And then it's for them to determine whether or not they want to listen, take it and run with it. I have a mentee that she will not leave my side because she knows that I see where you are, but she always also knows I've been in this for 20 years, so it took me a minute to get here. So she recognizes that, she appreciates it, and she takes in as much as she can. Absolutely. There are some that are in the space of they're still there. They'll get it one day. But they're currently in the space of, I know how to do that.
I do that myself.
And we have to get to the point where we're going to let you go ahead and do it.
Again.
And that's okay.
Yes. And then figure out
what they'll learn and fail.
And part of that comes from the microwave generation, and instant gratification, because that's when I say, earlier when I said, I feel like I missed something, because when I started out, it was an AOL dial-up and a flip phone and a pager. And there was no text. I mean, you had a text message that said, it was a pager. That was your text. There was no LinkedIn. There was no Facebook. There was no, what was the first one? MySpace. There was none of that. I was doing networking in the 90s when it was pure networking based on person to person. And I said, if I had the tools then that I have now, I'd be rich. I'd be wealthy, I'd be sitting back like some of my friends, collecting the dollars because it's money making money. So the gap that I saw, and I'm getting better with it, is the younger generation has all this technology to help them do it quicker, faster, but not necessarily better.
More efficient.
Sometimes more efficient, but not necessarily better, meaning the quality long term, because if it almost becomes transactional.
It's just a process, right?
Yeah, and it's transactional versus creating the relationships. So what happened to me one year when I went through the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. Some of the people that we went to MBE night in Annapolis, and I was introducing them to all these people, and now they call me the mayor. And I was like, how do you know these people of political note? We'll just put it that way. I said, because I knew them when they didn't have this title.
Right.
And that's the benefit of being older. I knew them when they were attorney working for, just a law firm, and now they're
just
this
out of
person.
college, just out of-
Right. I knew them when they were just, working in government. Well, not necessarily because that young, but I'm just saying, you were working over here in this department, I was over here, and I'm trying to make this. And so you have a 25, 30-year relationship with some of these people, and you've watched them mature, and they got this, what we call this big name and title. And not that, and I don't disrespect that, but the people were like, thanks, come, Carla, getting all this. They look, it's love. It's just connection because I know them.
Yes.
And that's what the older generation has, that the younger generation sees and like, how did that happen? And so but if they're building those relationships with each other, 30 years, it'll be the same for them. And it's just nothing that whole instant, what does they say? Overnight success is 15 years in the making, and I'm like, okay, it ain't been a little bit more than 15 years. Still longer than 15 years. Yeah, girl. The other thing, Ebony, you were saying about your mentee, I remember when you pulled your collaborative together, your people, and I heard what Ebony was doing, and it was about I'm looking at Michelle because of what we talked about, what we were doing in the 90s, and I'm like, this is Ebony doing the, bringing her consortium of people together, and I didn't know her very well, like we know each other now, but I knew her where I was like, she got that in her, and I saw some of the people, and I was like, yes, I don't know about that one, but and that I don't know dropped off, right? But I told Ebony, I said, I want to talk with you because I saw she was doing some of the things that I used to do differently. And I said, and it was, okay, I wanted to have that conversation where I wanted to pull her and say, okay, don't worry about this, that, and the other. And so,
I listen.
Okay, yes, ma'am. But and even getting back to the collaborative, there were some things that she was going through, getting ready to get married, had to get a new house, all at the same time, and then working on a contract, a proposal, and she was just like, Carla, I said, you know what, you need some space, you need some peace and quiet. Come on, let me give you keys to the office, and you can do what you need to do in the office. I'm not charging, no. Because you need there's safe space and that peace. Come on in here. Just do what you need to do. And because I would like to think that, now she's got this beautiful, wonderful contract, but sometimes it's not money. We need resources. We need somebody to talk to us. We need somebody to understand.
That support system.
Just listen. Yeah. Sometimes just to listen.
Just to listen. Yeah.
I have a cork board in my space, and when I ask my guests, what do you do? I'm asking so I can be that phone book for you. And there's been so many times where I'm like, you need a realtor? Cool. You need this? Oh, you need landscaping? This. Like you never know who you may know. And it made me think about when I bought my house, and everyone's bought a house. It's a nightmare. And our closing was all messed up, and the city wasn't responding to us, and our house is packed up. We have 3 kids and nowhere to go. And we don't have a house because we haven't closed. And my husband and I are crying. It's the week of our anniversary. We thought we were going to move. And he's panicking. And I was like, I know somebody that knows the city. I know somebody that used to work for the city. Who? Carla. I said, she don't work for the state no more. Whatever. And so my husband said, who are you calling? I said, hold on, call Carla. We'll call her. And told her the situation. And you were in between and, starting up your business. And all she did was send an official email to somebody she used to work with, somebody who knew somebody at the city, and had her, her signature and her business on it. And things started moving. And I think within 3 days, we were in our house. And it was, literally, we needed that. We got a grant from the city, so we needed that grant to close. And whatever workaround, they weren't wiring, and somebody was on vacation, her sending an email.
Yes.
My loan officer in the city started responding to her. Responding to her. And, she was speaking as like a broker for us. And meanwhile, she's just my friend. She's just my friend. And ever since that, I got that cork board. And I was like, you never know who I know.
You'll need
And if
That's
I don't
right.
know,
Right.
I'm
I'm a fan. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's the community.
But you're right. Because
That's
for
the
me,
community.
it's, you find when you're behind the scenes and whatever it is, you find out that it's something small that the person has not done that becomes a huge obstacle for the customer. There's a lot of things I can say in there, but stop. Do your job.
Right.
And some of it, like you said, personal vacation or why it take you that long?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
what's going on?
Why?
One person.
Just like I tell you,
Right.
their certification is held up because they just didn't sign the tax return.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, just right.
It's real
And then
simple.
you're not telling the person what's missing. And yet, for the sake of talking about business, certification, getting certified should not take a freaking year.
Right.
Why? And so though I, provide a couple of excuses or reasonings, because a lot of people have moved on and everything, but sometimes it's the person is sitting on it, and so I'm calling Kim. And Kim says, send them to me, and I'm trying to protect her. No, send them to me. And so the person that I sent them to, they're coming back. It's like, oh my gosh, thank you. But again, it's relationship, that got this person through the door and through the process and everything, and I'm not charging you for that. And that's the other, when we talk about, it's not about, charging and getting the money, because money is good, but money isn't everything.
Right. And all money's not
and
good.
all money not good money. But it's but God knows you don't need money. You need access. And just like people, they have access to you to who I need access, and I need the favor of God from someplace else, so I don't need the financial transaction. I need the favor of God to come down and bless me. And then sometimes I'm like, okay, what? And God like, you just need to wait. Just wait a little bit. It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. And
delayed is not denied.
Baby, all the time.
Yeah.
And that whole trust the process.
Yes.
Ooh-wee. Is real. And I know that's a whole nother conversation for real. But
Yes,
and as we wrap up this particular series, I am just so grateful for you all coming and sharing and giving. Again, this is just talking and giving of your time and of your day. But I hope it is a blessing to you all, but also to our audience that will look at it and receive some golden nuggets at some point. And share us and give us your feedback. But we are hoping that as we continue to roll out and have these conversations, that something will resonate with you. And hopefully it's resonated with each of us and everything. And so this, again, may it be the first of many. And I thank you so much.
Thank you.